joining me for the second week of the Patons Crochet Sock Along. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming you have completed the first week's tutorial and you've completed both of your socks to the point that I'm at now. So just to recap what we did in our first week, we began by working our ribbed cuff flat. We then joined the cuff with a row of slip stitches in order to pick up the leg of the sock in the round. We've then worked the leg in single crochet to a length of either 2 or 2.5 inches, depending on the size that you're making. I'm making the smallest size, so my leg should measure 2 inches from the base of the ribbing to the end of my work. So I'm right on track. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to revert to working flat back and forth in rows to work the heel flap of my sock. Depending on the size of sock you're making, your heel flap will either be worked across 23, 25, or 27 stitches. So this marker marks the first stitch of my round, so I'm going to slip that out. I will work my first single crochet into the next stitch for this row, and I'm just going to pop that marker back in for the time being. And now I'll continue to work the remainder of stitches for my heel flap. So I've got one already worked, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, all right, and 23. So what I will do now is I'm going to leave the remaining 24 stitches unworked, and that's 24 unworked for the smallest size. Just be mindful if you're making a different size to refer to the pattern for exact counts. So I've turned, chained one, and I'm just going to work backwards in a row, going back just working single crochet. And I've left the stitch marker in the first stitch just so that I don't have to count on the way back. Okay, and once I get to my marker, I'll work my final stitch in the marked stitch and then turn my work again. All right, and so I'll dispense with the marker for now, just simply because the heels that you set aside for your flap are very evident right now. So to give my heel just a little bit of reinforcement, I'll start the row with just a standard single crochet. But what I'm going to do in the next stitch is, instead of working into that stitch, I'm going to work below it. And just drop a single crochet, but a long single crochet. So a standard single crochet in the next stitch, and then dipping below the following stitch and working a long single crochet. And so all of this is doing is it's adding a little bit of extra reinforcement. So I'm going across this row, just alternating between long single crochet and regular single crochet. So you may have encountered this stitch previously. It's used a lot in crochet color work, and usually in that application it's referred to as a spike stitch. It's a way to draw a line of color down into your work when used in that way. This long single crochet has just a slightly more utilitarian purpose. All right, and since we've worked over an odd number of stitches, I'm starting and ending my row with just a plain single crochet. And so I'll turn my work, and my next row will be a single crochet row, and then the following row will be a mixture of this same pattern of long single crochet and regular single crochet. I will continue these 2 rows until my heel flap measures a total of 2.5 inches from where it starts compared to the leg of the sock. So I'm going to continue working my 2-row repeat for my heel flap, and I will be back once I've done the full length of it. Okay, so I've now worked my heel flap to a length of 2.5 inches from the end of the leg of my sock. And so my next step is going to be to shape the heel to create a nice curve that will fit snugly around the heel of your foot. So I finished on a right side row per the instructions. And now what I will do is I'm going to work single crochet stitches into each of the first 12 stitches. And be mindful that is for the smallest size. You'll work either 13 or 14 for the 2 larger sizes, respectively. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And now I'm going to work 2 single crochet together, which will decrease a total of 2 stitches. So insert hook and bring up a loop. Each of the next 2 stitches, yarn over hook and draw through them all. And I'll do that same action again. So for a total of 2 stitches decreased. Now I'm going to work a single crochet in each of the first 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and another 2 single crochet 2 together. Turning and chaining 1. Now I'll work a single crochet in each of the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so now I've reached the end of the row of stitches that I've worked previously, but I do still need to do 2 single crochet together. So what I will do here is I'm simply going to jump down to the next stitch in sequence. So I'm skipping, I'm not joining to the rows here along the side, I'm just dipping right down into my next unworked stitch. And single crocheting 2 together twice. And then turning again. And now I'll be working a single crochet into each of the next 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And again, I'm going to do 2 single crochet together into my next unworked stitches in that row. But we're making a bit of a leap and working down into stitches that haven't been incorporated into the last couple of rows. So 2 single crochet 2 togethers. And then turn. So now I'm going in my pattern and I'm following the instructions that indicate that they're for size small only. So just be cognizant to follow the correct set of instructions for the size that you're making. All right, so I'm working into each of the next 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. All right, and again, I'm doing another decrease. I'm just single crocheting 2 together this time though. Just 1 decrease here. And then I'll do 1 single crochet into the final stitch, chain 1 and turn. All right, and so now I'm going to go back and single crochet into each of the next 11 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I'm doing another decrease working into my next unworked stitches. Again, these weren't incorporated into the previous row, but I'm just going to work down into them as though they had. A single crochet, 2 together, and then a final single crochet. All right. And just to confirm, I will count my stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Wonderful. So I've done my heel decreases. And now you'll see how that's going to fit just snugly under the heel of your foot. Now that our heel shaping is complete, we can start setting up to do our instep shaping. What we'll do is pick up 16 single crochet along this edge of the heel flap, work evenly across the stitches we set aside when we were working our heel flap, pick up another 16 single crochet, and then just work evenly around the remaining heel stitches. So we're picking up 16 stitches along this edge, and I'm not going to worry too much about partitioning it out into segments as I did for the leg pickup, simply because it's a shorter distance and it's a little bit easier to gauge how the stitches should be spaced. I have about 10 ridges here, and I'm picking up 16 stitches, so I know that I need to pick up about a ratio of 1.5 stitches per ridge, which means I will be working into the same stitch twice in a few places. So I'll begin with 1 SC, and I'm working around either the final stitch or the chain 1 from the previous row, just to make sure it's nicely secure and fastened to the body of the sock. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and now for this final one, I'm going to kind of work into the corner there just to close up any gap that may have occurred. Just a result of this being a right angle, it's a little bit severe. So working a little bit deeper into the body of the sock just prevents gapping. And I'm going to put a stitch marker on that very last stitch there that I've worked. And so I'll work across the remaining stitches from the leg of the sock that I didn't work when I was doing the heel flap. And so I'm not making any changes to the established stitch pattern at this point. I'm just working evenly along in single crochet. Okay, so I'm across, and
and I'm going to pick up another stitch in that corner, and that will be the first of my 16 picked up stitches, and I'll pop a stitch marker there as well. And so I'm just doing the same thing as I did on the other heel flap, picking up a total of 16 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And now I'll just work evenly across my remaining stitches from my heel shaping. Right, and so I've made it all the way around, and I'll place a marker to mark the end of my rounds. And so we can kind of see things starting to come together now. Just pull my hook out. So we're working around to create the instep of the sock. And how we'll be proceeding is that this next round that we work will be a decrease round, and we'll alternate between doing even rounds and decrease rounds until we reach a certain number of stitches required for each individual size of sock that we're making. So I'm not doing a slip stitch. I'm working as a spiral without a chain 1. Right, so I have one more stitch to go because I'm working until 2 stitches before the marked stitch. And what I'm going to do with these 2 stitches is I'm going to work a decrease. So single crochet 2 together, slide that marker out of the next stitch, work a single crochet, and then replace that stitch marker in the stitch it was originally in. And once more, I'll work evenly across my instep stitches. And I'm working right up to the marker this time. And so once we get to that marked stitch, going to remove the marker, work the stitch, and then do a single crochet 2 together. Okay, so I'm removing the marker just to work that stitch. I'm going to replace it immediately. And now I'll single crochet 2 together. And then just continue to work the remainder of this round even. And then my next round will be worked evenly the entire way around, and I'll repeat a decrease row after I've worked one even. And what's going to happen, and why it's important to have those stitch markers in place, is you're going to end up with a instep that's been shaped through decreases here to give it a snug fit around your foot. Now that these markers are in place and you know where your decreases need to go, you can work to the number of stitches specified in the pattern. And once you've reached that number, you'll just work evenly in rounds until your sock has reached the length indicated in the pattern. And so that will be worked very much the same way as the leg. You'll be working evenly in rounds in a spiral without chaining one or using slip stitches, just to get rid of any extra bulk from the sock. So now that your decreases are set up, I'm gonna get to work on my sock, and I will see you next week.